Speaking in Jackson, Mississippi, we don't yet know if Trump will repeat his words of outreach to African-American voters tonight, essentially saying, what the hell have you have to lose? Part of that message has been especially blunt, and there's been no shortage of controversy since he said many African-Americans live in poverty, have no jobs or good schools. As I said, his pitch boiled down to, what do you have to lose?
The establishment.
I say this to the African-American community. Give Donald Trump a chance. We will turn it around. We will make your streets safe. So when you walk down the street, you don't get shot, which is what's happening now.
That was Donald Trump in Austin, Texas last night. Gary Tuchman was with a group of African Americans who watched that speech. The question is his message hitting home? Take a look.
20 African Americans from Austin, Texas. How many Democrats do we have here?
I think it was 9.
Okay. 9 Democrats. How many Republicans? 5 Republicans? The rest independent. All watching Donald Trump's Austin rally with us.
Every African-American child in this country.
Most not happy with what they were hearing.
A good education with a great paying job. That's success.
It's just so easy, you know.
Not saying anything.
Fish in the barrel, baby.
But among Republicans supporting Trump, like these two people,
We're going to cut taxes and create millions and millions of new jobs.
a different vibe, more content. None of the Trump supporters here say they love the man. What they tell us is that he and the GOP more reflect their values.
I'm just a Republican, and I'm going to support the Republican candidate, whoever that person is.
Other Trump supporters look past his controversial comments and look forward to a more hands-off government.
I don't care what he says. I don't care what he or any other white man says or what they do. All I want them to do is stay out of my way. I don't want them to give me nothing, just stay out of my way. Don't put anything in my way. Let me be what I can be.
But those were among the nicest things said about Trump here.
I say this to the African-American community. Give Donald Trump a chance.
Richard Franklin is an independent, leaning towards Jill Stein. Would those words persuade you perhaps to give him a chance?
I don't even know what that means. Give him a chance to do what? He didn't state what he was going to actually do. It was just some ether conversation, and he hung his hat on nothing at this point. So, no, I wouldn't give him a chance to hurt me, no.
And then there are the Democrats. He hasn't convinced you of anything.
He hasn't convinced me of one thing at all. If anything, he's convinced me he's a liar and deceiver.
I thought his rhetoric was rancorous and nonsensical.
He's not just been disrespectful to African Americans, he's been disrespectful to people throughout the course of his campaign.
But what about Trump's approach over the last week to focus parts of his speeches on making African Americans' lives better?
No, he's not speaking to us. He's speaking to his base. He's trying to pivot now and come off as though he's not a racist and not a bigot. But we know who he is.
But Trump supporter Marilyn Jackson told us it's time to get real. He said the other day, war zones are safer than living in some of our inner cities that are run by Democrats, referring to places where African Americans live. Do you find that disparaging?
Not necessarily, if it is the truth.
Democrat Latrice Cook disagrees.
And to come to Texas, where we have many problems with racism, and say the things that he says and make appeal to, or try to make an appeal to black people is a joke. He's funny. I wouldn't support him to do anything for me.
Mr. Trump has 76 days and counting to try and change her mind. Gary Tuchman, CNN, Austin, Texas.
Well, a lot to talk about with our political panel. Clinton supporters Jonathan Tassini and Christine Quinn, CNN politics reporter Eugene Scott, Trump supporter Kayleigh McEnany, conservative commentator Tara Setmayer, who does not support Trump, and Trump supporter and former South Carolina Lieutenant Governor Andre Bauer. Eugene, we're now hearing from the Donald Trump campaign after days of criticism that he's talking largely to white audiences, that he is going to be doing some outreach, perhaps in an African-American community, maybe with Ben Carson and others. Do you think that's going to make a difference?
Well, it's certainly going to have a more significant impact
impact than his speeches last week, which were in 2 places that didn't have significant black voters. If he wants to reach black voters, they're saying you have to be where black voters are. A lot of his supporters are saying he could speak anywhere and the message goes to black voters because of what we have with...
Right, that he's talking to a national audience.
Yeah, with technology and internet. But black voters have asked. They said they want to hear more, to come to the churches, come to the schools, come to the neighborhoods. So if he does that, like he has said he will, I think he could see a bit of a response, but perhaps not a significant one.
You know, Tara, it was interesting. Corey Lewandowski the other night at this program said, look, he went to Chicago and that didn't work out so well because there were demonstrators there. Do you think this is going to make a difference?
No, because, so Corey Lewandowski's argument the other night was asinine and also borderline offensive because he implied that if you go to a black neighborhood and it was so out of control that Donald Trump wasn't safe there, which I hope that wasn't what he was implying. But besides the fact that the Hyde Park area near University of Chicago is actually rather affluent in the surrounding areas. So, I mean, the whole argument was just very convoluted. And it was almost like he was trying to get to the point where it was like, no matter what we do, it's not good enough for you people. It was very veiled in the way that he made those things.
But bottom line, do you think this is going to make a difference for Donald Trump going to, say, an African-American church? Because there are some churches and there are some pastors we've had on the program who support Donald Trump.
Yeah, I would, some of those people, I'd use the term pastor very loosely. But look, Donald Trump would have an opportunity. If he was serious about this, he's going to Jackson, Mississippi, where the black population there is the majority of the people who live there. They actually have a charter school program going on in Mississippi where, I mean, the education system in Mississippi is abysmal. You have, 80 to 85% of 8th graders who can't read or that don't read and are math proficient. And Donald Trump could go there and talk about school choice, education, maybe visit one of those successful charter schools. He's not doing any of that.
Really?
That's an investment in the community, not just standing there in a city that happens to have black folks. Are there black people in the audience? I don't think so.
Alan West, a conservative African-American former congressman, said something very profound today. He said that Donald Trump is the first Republican candidate, to actually try to make an appeal to the African-American community. As you recall, Mitt Romney dismissed 47% of the electorate, basically said they won't be voting for me, so I'm not even going to try. Donald Trump is trying, and Alan West reiterated the message that Donald Trump has put forward, which is you voted to the tune of 95% for the Democratic Party.
But didn't Mitt Romney have higher poll numbers among African Americans?
And so did George W. Bush.
But we've seen Donald Trump's go up this week. They went from 1% to 2%. Now in North Carolina, he's polling at 3%, and I've seen polls that show 8%. So I think he's moving forward. He's trying to make inroads. I think he will beat Mitt Romney's number. And Alan West's question is a very profound one, which is, have you seen a return on your investment?
Jonathan, we saw Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are essentially tied in North Carolina. If you look at the black vote there, Clinton leads Trump 88% to 3%. Trump has nowhere to go but up with that number, really.
Yeah, nationally, I mean, he's at 1%, and I assume he thinks he can double it to 2%. I mean, the reality is what Jabbar Brown said, one of the people that Gary interviewed. Donald Trump's hateful language is affecting everybody. And to think that African Americans react differently than Latinos who are appalled by Donald Trump's angry, hateful language, I think misses the point. And I think that's why he's polling so low. When African Americans see a guy basically anti-Latino talking about building a wall, his hateful language about immigration, that affects the way they think also about a man who is promoting hateful language.
But Anderson, I don't think this is about actually reaching out to the African American.
You think it's about white voters?
I absolutely think it's another Trump con, and it's about trying to gain white votes, particularly amongst white college-educated men, because Trump is poised to be the first Republican to lose that demographics. If you were really going to outreach to any community, as Jonathan said, you would never have said those things. You can't disappear them from the record, but you also wouldn't be starting at 70 whatever days with no real specific plan, as the gentleman
Andre,
said.
to that
it's
point,
not a real thing.
Is that the same thing he's doing with immigration? Saying, well, I'm no longer talking about a deportation force. I'm no longer talking about 11 million people have to leave. Now it's you pay your back taxes and there's a path forward.
Clearly, he's trying to reach to some demographics he's losing, which I appreciate him as a Republican going to places that Republicans historically haven't looked for votes. And we need to do more of that as a party. I tried to do it as lieutenant governor, worked real hard at it.
Where was that?
Where did I do it?
No. Where has Trump gone to get votes recently?
As an overall theme, he is working. He is now at least engaging in the conversation, saying, look, I'm a better
person to help you get a job. I'm a better person to help you fix education. So he's engaging in a conversation to at least start a dialogue, and the crowds are getting more people of color in them now.
Donald Trump is talking about black people as opposed to having a conversation and talking to the black community. Or with, that's right, having conversationally. He's talking about them in front of audiences that are predominantly white. That is off-putting. And the fact that he doesn't have any prominent black advisors to explain to him, there is an empathy aspect of this here. If you really want to have this conversation, you have to have an acknowledgement of what has gone, the experiences that black folks have in this country, whether you think they're real or not. You have to at least acknowledge it. Perception is reality.
He is, Kelly, to that point, he is painting with a very broad brush life for African Americans in the United States of America. You walk down the street, you're going to get shot, your schools are falling apart, you don't have jobs, you're living in poverty.
He's speaking to a specific reality, which none of us on this panel can relate to, and that is life in the inner city.
Most black people don't live like that.
Where in
Most black
Chicago?
people don't live like that.
That's a stereotype right there, Kelly.
Like the stats don't support that.
Let me finish. No, I'm not saying that's most black people. Of course there are white people who live in the inner city and Hispanic people, but he's articulating statistics that are a very real reality for people. For some people, 4 in 10 African American children live in poverty. That is a real number. These are numbers put forward by liberal black commentators like Tavis Smiley and Cornel West, and conservatives like Ben Carson, which, by the way, I would consider Ben Carson a prominent black advisor.
But the majority of black Americans do not live in poverty.
That's
a fact.
Here's the other issue.
He needs to specify that if he wants to get their vote.
But there are a number of African American individuals who poverty is a reality for them. And it's sad and it's unfortunate. And for Donald Trump to try to speak to those people, there's nothing wrong with that.
But the way he's speaking to them is so condescending. If that's the case, that he cares about inner city African Americans, then why isn't he speaking about in language about empowering people to start businesses, school choice, those kinds of?
We don't play those
saying that
sound bites.
I'm going to guarantee that you're not going to get shot walking down the street.
That's not true.
We're not going to get.
And Tara's right about. Let me pick up on what Tara said. And what the people on that Gary talked to said. It's completely empty. There's no plan or content. It says, "Trust me, I'm going to do this." For example,
there is a plan.
Donald Trump opposes a federal minimum wage. He wants to throw it all to the states. The Democratic Party is saying we want to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour for everybody. That affects people in the inner city, not just blacks, all working people. Donald Trump never said a word about that. He never said anything specific.
I challenge folks to go watch the raw footage of Trump rallies, because here's what you'll hear. You'll hear him saying that African Americans have fought in every single war. You will hear him say that they have raised the national conscience of this country. You will hear him proffer school choice and articulate how immigration negatively affects some people in this community. You will hear those things. It's raw footage. We focus on the one thing he did wrong and trying to reach out to voters and be inclusive. And you can make that argument that he's not being inclusive, but he is trying.
Does Donald Trump need to speak about racism? Does Donald Trump, it's one thing to say African Americans fought in every war. There's also segregation in the military, through World War II. Does he need to speak about that if he's really going to be speaking about life for African Americans in this country?
Sure, I think he absolutely should. I think he should proffer a criminal justice plan. I think overall his message is one that is better for the African American community than the Democrats.
Right, he's talking economic
one
empowerment.
That lifts all boats, economic empowerment, trade. It helps all communities, including
he's had a year to do that, and he hasn't done it. And just to put things in perspective about other Republicans, with all due respect to Alan West, who I like a lot, but George W. Bush won 16% of the vote in Pennsylvania. He won 13% of the vote in Florida and 16% of the vote in Ohio in 2004. These are key swing states that Donald Trump absolutely needs to win, and he has not done anything in any of these states that can be pointed to as effective
we
black
got to take
outreach.
a break here. We got a lot more to talk about just ahead as Donald Trump tries to court the African American vote. His past getting new scrutiny decades ago has been discussed on this program last night. He was accused of refusing to rent apartments to minorities. His employees even had a code for marking which applications came from African Americans. Take a look at how that lawsuit turned out next.